From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
Oh, I had a late night last night, hence the gap before speaking. I have to think about everything I say. Good morning, it is the North East Footy Brekky across the North East. God, I sound like Rod Stewart, it's fantastic. We've got Steve, Newcastle fan. Animal. There is Rye, the Borough fan, and Michael, the Sunderland fan, is with us this morning. I suppose we better
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, we better be polite and say good morning, Michael. How are you, mate?
I'm not doing too badly. We'll just ignore the fact that you asked me off air, but we'll just make the listeners pretend like you actually care. So yes, I'm doing all right. How are you all doing?
He's got the show sussed already. Bloody hell, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, we're 2 minutes past 7 and that's it. We might as well finish, lads, and go and have an early start of the day, end of the day in Australia.
Love it.
Yeah. So Rye was cock-a-hoop yesterday because obviously Borough managed to get a win. So was I. Rarefied air for the Borough at the moment. Absolutely it was. And then we find out that we're going to be the only North East representative in the Cup after the next round. So absolutely fantastic. Newcastle hosting Manchester City, Steve. You didn't want that, did you?
I've got to be honest, let's hope the Champions League draw today is better than the Carabao Cup draw last night. But yeah, I've got to be honest, if you're going to win it, you've got to beat the best, and at least we're at home. I'm trying to accentuate the positives, but after that, and then hearing another Steve Bruce interview about Newcastle yesterday, I've got to be honest, it hit me firmly between the eyes yesterday. It was a tough day.
A tough day. But look, think of it on the bright side, mate. At least you're still in the competition. Not like what's that team called? Oh yeah, Sunderland. They got beat by Crewe, didn't they? Yeah,
Sunderland. That's right. Right. Sunderland.
Oh no, being in the Cup's overrated. Of course, we love getting beat by lower league opposition, don't we? So that's what's really. If you haven't done that, then you haven't lived.
What's it? I mean, how do you take this then, Michael? Is it you just like ignore that the Carrier Bag Cup's now going on because it's finished for another year? Is that what you do? Ignore the cup draws?
Well, kind of. I mean, let's be honest. I don't particularly want my rivals winning the cups. So I think, to be honest, I was quite relieved when they've got Man City. But at the same time, Newcastle are at home, aren't they? And at St James's, it's a different kettle of fish. I mean, and Middlesbrough got Bradford, I believe. Is that right?
We're at the mighty Bradford.
Mighty Bradford. Oh, there you go. To be honest, I mean, for me, I think our progress is in the Championship. But yeah, I mean, us getting beat by low league opposition standard at this point in the Cups. So I just take it with a pinch. I just take it in my stride at this point.
I thought you'd started as you meant to go on there. I don't know whether you noticed that. When he was going on about our rivals in the Cup, we don't want them to progress, and instantly says Newcastle. I thought we were going to be ignored again because, of course, Sunderland fans, Newcastle fans.
Well, you were proved exactly right, weren't you?
Yay.
I'm happy to be the sleeping giant, Dave. Don't you worry, mate. They let them two just all over everything while we just sweep the whole league and the Carabao Cup. You know what? We'll probably take the FA Cup while they're sleeping as well, mate. Don't you? You can
definitely tell Rye's mood's gone up a bit since beating Bolton, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's crashing back down to earth at the weekend, I bet.
Yeah, if you lose to QPR, I'm calling in sick all of next week. Don't you worry about that.
Good man. Good man. Look, I've got to ask Steve the big question, which is Newcastle against Man City in the next round. Are either club going to field a decent team, or is this the competition where you play your second strings, even though your second string's probably worth about 350 million?
Yeah, we're not quite at that level yet, but I genuinely think that Newcastle United will make a big effort to try and get back to the final of this cup competition. They got there last year, got to the final, obviously didn't turn up against Manchester United, had the issue of not having their first choice goalkeeper, which didn't help after he got sent off against Liverpool, Nick Pope, of course, and having to field carriers who hadn't played a game. But Newcastle didn't turn up on the day. Manchester United, it was an easy win for them. And for me, I think that the team will want to get back to that final. Nick Pope certainly will want to get back to that final and put things right. So I think Newcastle will field a very strong team against Manchester City. Manchester City have got 2 11s. They have got the opportunity to be able to have, Phil Foden have a man of the match performance against Newcastle at the Etihad, and then the following week drop them. So this is the way it is. But that trophy as well. Just look back at the last few years. Apart from last season, Manchester City have made that their own trophy. So they take that very seriously. They use it to blood the youngsters and give people an opportunity to play. In the first team. I think it'll be a cracking game. It's certainly going to be the one that's televised. I would imagine one of the ones that's televised.
I'd be astonished if that's not on TV. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think as well. I mean, you just look overall, at the draw for the third round. There's a few Premier League ties, and you've got to look at that and think, actually, anybody who gets through round 3, which is like a group of death, has got a good opportunity of progressing in the competition. And it's a cup competition. We've got to take it seriously. I know it's a bit of a damn squib, I think, for supporters, but I am excited. It's a big game. It's at home, and we've got to win those games if we're going to win the final. Get to the final.
Do you think you've got the depth, Dave? Steve, sorry.
Do I think we've got the depth? Yeah, I think Newcastle have got...
Obviously, it's the first season now that we're seeing Newcastle, obviously in the Premier League, also Champions League, and now Carabao Cup. Obviously, you're starting to get to those levels now, like the Man Cities and the Arsenals that are constantly complaining about how many games they have to schedule in a week. Do you think Newcastle have got the depth to handle the 3 leagues? And do you think there would be a focus on, right, we're going to have to go for Champions League, or do you think they can manage a full strength team for each competition? Say there's a Champions League game on the Tuesday, we got Premier League on the Saturday, and then the following Tuesday you've got a Carabao Cup tie. Surely that must, take it out of the boys.
Right, it's time. It's time will tell situation. Newcastle really won't know now until maybe it's October when we come to another international break, where whether we can cope with it. A lot of it's going to come down to injuries. A lot of it's going to come down to suspensions. We seem to have we've got a better squad, but it still hasn't got that strength and depth. You just need that little bit of luck. A lot depends on who we end up getting in the Champions League. If we can avoid a group of death, which could happen, then
fingers crossed.
We'll be all right. But I think it's listening to Michael at the start of the show. When we're talking a little bit about concentrating on the league. Newcastle's owners will want Newcastle United to finish in the Champions League spots again, and I think that is the priority. But it's whether Eddie Howe and his coaching staff are on the same hymn sheet. They'll want to concentrate on maybe winning something as well, because ultimately that's what you're judged on. But I think time will tell. I guess we'll know the answer to that a little bit closer to Christmas.
It's a lot of football, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a lot of football, isn't it? And I'm just interested in the line that you mentioned there about you're going to take the I've still got to call it the Carabao Cup. I know it's the Carabao. I apologise, EFL. I don't want to disgrace your sponsors, but it's easy to say Carabao. But would you be taking the game as seriously had you have drawn Lincoln rather than Manchester City?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because obviously, if you play a lower league opposition and you've got them at home, then you're going to play a slightly different team, on the day, I would imagine. But Manchester City, you're going to go full strength, and especially with the teams already playing each other, and Newcastle losing 1-0. I think they'll really want to make a statement with this game. So I genuinely think Newcastle will field their strongest possible 11 on that game, and it comes in and around the Champions League fixtures as well. I mean, what a week, what a couple of weeks that's going to be. It's going to be a big couple of weeks, and that's going to test the strength of the squad as well. What we need, though, we need to concentrate on the league, and we need to get 3 points at Brighton. International break.
He's setting it up already. He's setting it up already. Are we going to concentrate on the league? That's a Borough phrase.
We need points in the bag, because that competence is what it's all about, lads. You know that. You know what I mean. The championship is a long season, and you both haven't got off to the greatest of starts. But you put a little run together, you're suddenly in the playoffs, and suddenly everyone's talking. The crowd's up for it, and it's exactly the same in the Premier League. Newcastle need to get results, so they need 3 points against Brighton, 3 points against Brentford, and that'll set us up nicely for the Champions League and the Carabao Cup.
Oh, I was going to come on.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to come on to Sunderland, but I can't yet because we're still talking the cup. Well, okay, we will, Michael. I mean, you're sitting there. We know the rivalry in the Northeast. We all poke fun and, poke holes at each other from different footballing persuasions. But what's it like being a Sunderland fan? You overachieved last year. You must admit to that. You weren't expecting what you did last year. So suddenly you're in a sniff of the Premier League. And then, obviously, Newcastle, Champions League, pulling City out in the League Cup in the third round. I mean, what is the view of Tyneside from Wearside?
Well, it's as you can probably imagine, it's going to be full of flowers and roses, and everyone's going to be very happy with each other. But yeah, look, I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure Steve can attest. I'm pretty sure he doesn't like Sunderland. I'm not particularly keen on Newcastle, but that is what rivalry is. It's all about trying to one up each other. Although, let's be honest, I don't think we're able to one up Newcastle in any capacity at the moment. But that is what it is. A lot of clubs feel that way. I mean, if you look at someone like, I'm trying to think, like Man City, for example, they'll be wanting to constantly one up Man United, given the fact that Man United was so dominant at the top of the Premier League for so long. Obviously, the difference is I think we need to be bought out by someone by the level that they are to be able to
stop
compete.
Stop that! Don't go there because we're at the front of the queue for golf money. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but. I mean, put it this way. I mean, and as you quickly mentioned to us last season, look, we did overachieve. We underachieved. We wanted top 2 last year, but joking aside, we did overachieve. Like that. Well, let's not beat around the bush. We did. We were in the Championship after 4 years in League One, and to finish in the playoffs was quite frankly a remarkable achievement. And especially when you consider we probably had a full 11 of first teamers out injured or close to it. Is to the point where it impacts this season and it's quite interesting because last year has probably, what's the word I'm looking for, raised expectations. And I think my expectation personally, I can only speak for myself, but my personal expectation this year is to challenge for the playoffs again. And if we don't finish in them, we don't finish in them. But obviously a lot of that depends, like what Steve said, a lot of it depends on injuries and suspensions. For us, a good chunk of that depends on the next 36 hours or however long's left of the transfer window.
Yeah, well, we'll get onto that very shortly. I'm sure we will. But I mean, we've all got to feel a bit of sympathy for Rye, don't we? Because, with all due respect,
have we?
Yeah, we do. Because he's going to be sitting there on the east coast of Australia, not being able to pick up a Borough stream in the third round because you've just nailed it, haven't you? Newcastle, Man City, other Premier League clashes as well in the cup. There's no chance Borough are going to be streamed, mate. No,
we're not going to see the Bradford Middlesbrough game. There's no hope when you've got the other, you got the Saudi Arabia versus Saudi Arabia. It's incredible.
There it is. Hold on, what time is it? It's 7:14.
Yeah, we did well.
I had to get it in.
We did well. It was 22 minutes yesterday. It's only 14 today.
I got it in early today, and that won't be the last of it. No, it will be. I'll give you a break today, Steve.
Thanks,
but it's going to be another tie that we're going to have to. Again, we spoke about it yesterday, the television rights, the amount of money that goes into the television rights and stuff like that. And you can bet your bottom dollar that you won't get a feed. And, I had all the Borough fans, texting me and DMing me and saying, how did you get the stream? How do we get a stream? I can't see the boys. And it is quite frustrating, to not be able to see your team on a Tuesday night if you can't make the game. So, look, it is what it is. But, I'm quietly confident going away to Bradford. But Bradford did knock us out a couple of years back. So, I've got some sore memories with Bradford and going down there, so I think it's going to be a good challenge for the Borough. But I would hate to say, what Steve just said. But I think the league's the focus at the moment because look, we don't want to be where we are, so we need to take whatever form we are getting out of this cup into into the championship. But I am
just to interrupt you, right? It might be a case of momentum, though. It might be a case that if you
I hope so. I hope so.
Game, then I think Michael Carrick's professional enough to want to try and take this game seriously enough. I mean, and if you players apply yourselves, you should be winning this game. It depending on what team you put out. If you put yourselves in the right place for it, then you never know. And it might be that actually, do you get that much money in the Carabao Cup these days? I'm thinking if you've got
I don't think it's heaps.
and got the much desired Middlesbrough versus Newcastle tie when they beat Manchester City.
Oh, that would have been great if we had gotten that.
Then especially if you are at home for it, then you know that'll certainly be televised and you can get at least a little bit of money for it.
we kind of hoped that after the first round in the EFL Cup as well. We saw us. We went away to Huddersfield and we ended up winning that 3-2. And we're like, here we go. Now the boys have found a bit of form. We got 3 goals in the bag. Surely that means come Saturday we're fine. Rock up to commentary, we lose 3-0. So it was.
You know what you get
whatever
for winning the
that
Carabao
roll on
Cup
is. I need it.
you know what you get for winning the Carabao Cup this season? £100,000.
Yeah.
£100,000.
Vast amount of money.
You actually
do you
get
free,
more.
Get free energy drinks for life?
You must do, because the runners up get 50,000, and you actually win less prize money than you would if you get into the third round of the FA Cup.
No,
that's
way.
bonkers.
That's wow.
100 grand. That'll just about pay for the Saudi groundsman at Newcastle, won't it?
Oh, surely that's when you could look at Newcastle, who have got Champions League football and Premier League football, and they say, hey, look, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's when I look at the Man Cities and the bigger clubs in the Carabao Cup that realise that it's not really going to pay the wages. It might pay the wages of one of their players at Man City. I see they've just signed, or look like they've verbally agreed with Nunes for 47 million, mind you. So surely the 100,000 winning pot covers his wages, and that's about it, sort of thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I saw also, Steve, I had to tell you, did you see the rehearsal draw for Newcastle? On what who you got?
Well, I heard the rumours that Newcastle had a group of death. Yeah, I mean, at least that was the rehearsal.
So
who were the teams that they drew?
So in your rehearsal, right, you had the Champions League group rehearsal, and Newcastle drew Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, and Red Star Belgrade.
But I've got to be honest, that is what the Champions League is all about for Newcastle fans this year. We want to have
Champions League, yeah.
We want to have the best teams coming to St James's Park, you know, and you know, you've got a chance at St James's Park, you know, you're confident, but you want to see the best teams, lads. That's what it's all about. It's not Newcastle aren't going to win the Champions League this year, but it's an opportunity to play the best teams and see the best players, and it's that part of the journey that Newcastle fans are excited about at the moment, you know.
Mate, you never know. I mean,
could see Steve on a sunny Spain day. Don't you worry. I could see Steve at Real Madrid. It's beautiful sunshine. Watching Newcastle take on Real Madrid, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That is, he's justified a nice Spanish holiday now, hasn't he?
He definitely has. Yeah. Might be able to catch Bradford against Middlesbrough as well.
Oh, come on.
And Steve, to be fair, sorry, very quickly, Steve, if you don't mind me asking, what is the expectation with regards to the Champions League this year for Newcastle?
I genuinely think Newcastle fans just want to go away and have a good time. I think it's the same with Sunderland and Borough fans. When we get these opportunities, you just want to go and, you know, spend time with your mates.
Well, I wouldn't know about that. I don't think I'm ever going to see us in the Champions League, but I appreciate
you never know. But football fans just want to enjoy themselves, don't they? We travel in numbers, and I think the one thing that we've all got in common is, as fans, we go away in numbers. Look at Middlesbrough the other night down at Bolton, 2,800 supporters.
Yeah, that was a very good effort, that.
And look at Newcastle and Sunderland fans. Midweek, we get dragged from pillar to post up and down the country at daft kick-off times, and we're always there. That's the one thing we've got in common. We're loyal, and I think that's what we want in the Champions League. Expectations: would love to get through the group stage, of course we would, and then get into the knockout round. But ultimately, it's just about going and enjoying the experience, and then hopefully repeating the experience next year and the year after and the year after that. But I think it's interesting because obviously I'm older and wiser now. I did the Champions League 20 years ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got a different perspective on it now as a 50 plus supporter. I look at it now and think, okay, we'll just enjoy it. The youngsters will be thinking, yeah, we're going to win it. We want to do this. We want to do that. But you've got to have a sense of realism. This team is good enough to qualify for the Champions League. It's not good enough to win it. But we're good enough to make a statement, and we're an unknown quantity. We're going into this tournament, and a lot of these foreign teams will not know what Newcastle United is all about. They certainly won't know what St James's Park is all about. Yep. And the one thing I think I've learned from previous European trips is it's great because we make so many friends, and we've kept in touch with so many people from different places. Zagreb, we still have supporters who come from Zagreb to Newcastle and give us a bell when they come. Bulgaria, there's lots of different people who've subsequently become secondary Newcastle fans after supporting their own team because they love the city and they love the experience that much. It's about meeting new people, creating friendships across the borders, and that's what European football is all about to me. New experiences.
Love it.
I love the phrase older and wiser because you couldn't get more unwise than I was when the Borough got into the UEFA Cup, because I blew the house mortgage deposit on chartering a plane to take a lot of fans to Villarreal. So, yeah, older and wiser, definitely for the lot of us. Fellas, we just got to take a short break, recharge your glasses, go for a pee, whatever you got to do. And Rye, keep your ears peeled, because we're going to have a bit of a flavour of Australia. That's coming next.
Ooh.
Why do clients choose Ather & Co?
Very diligent, very caring, put themselves in my shoes.
Always informed me, kept me up to date of what was going on.
Didn't feel I had anything to worry about, and I had nothing to do other than turn up for a medical. Athers did the rest.
For the full story, see athers.co.uk/reviews.
Choose the one you know, Ather & Co.
Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Windows, conservatories and so much more. With high security, great quality, the company you've been searching for. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows.
Steve and Rye, the Northeast Footy Breakfast.
The Cats, the Tune and the Red.
There we go. A bit of Michael Hutchins and In Excess, and it was especially for Rye, just to make him feel at home. I hope you appreciate
I was
that.
dancing
one,
away.
Good man.
I really did, actually, and I was really enjoying that.
So
I was hoping for Kylie.
we've got one song on the radio stations for Kylie. That's, we just won't
really?
We just won't go to hallowed territory like that on hallowed territory. So just the one. Hey, I haven't told you the story, have I? How I turned down a night with Kylie's sister.
Danny Minogue.
Danny Minogue.
Hang on.
Yeah, Danny Minogue.
Dave.
I know. I've got to be
The
careful.
romantic life. Are we talking a date, or was it just a meeting?
A bit of both. A bit of both.
Oh,
A bit of both.
Davey, talk to us.
And
I'm interested now. Let's go.
I could not. I'll tell you what it was. I just couldn't be asked to go out that night. It's just like, And this was before Danny. Obviously, this was as Kylie was doing her stuff, and Danny was in the shadow of Kylie. And I just thought, I can't be bothered. I'm going to stay.
We're going to get Danny Minogue on
home.
the radio now. I want to get her on the radio, and I want to be like, listen, Danny, we have been on good authority that Dave, the master behind the keys here at our radio station, has turned you down.
Yeah, she was appearing at a gig at what was a famous nightclub in the village that I live in now, the Kirk. Was a famous nightclub. It's where Chris Rea got started and people like that. And she was appearing there, and it would all arrange for me to go and go across my little tape recorder, have a chat with her. Did that, and then after the chat, it was like, well, come to the gig tonight, and you will go out and get a bite to eat after. And I was just like, I've got my interview. I can't be bothered. I want to go to bed early.
No,
You're doing your hair.
Wow.
And the rest is history. Here I am sitting here as a Borough fan. Could have been so much different.
Yeah,
could have been so much different.
Asking some Aussie across the road to bloody come and have dinner with you. So times have changed. You've gone from Danny to Rye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of singing that you turned you down to Manchester United fans about Shearer, I'm going to go to a Danny Minogue gig and say Dave Roberts turned you down. I'm going to start singing that at Danny Minogue's
with a whole
next gig.
sign. Steve and I in the back row with the sign, Dave Roberts turned you down. That's what we're
there. You go.
That's us.
There you go. Anyway, let's get back to reality. Sheffield United against Lincoln City.
Wow.
Rye, I'm sure you want to go there.
What an interesting tie this was. Obviously, Borough fans watching this one closely with the recent announcement of Cameron Archer, the player that we all fell in love with when you don't fall in love with your lone players. But Cameron Archer signing for Sheffield United just a couple of days before this tie for 20 million, mind you. And we saw the new strike force of Big Bernie and Archer starting against lowly Lincoln City. Not only did we not see any goals until full time, we also saw a penalty shootout where John Egan, Bernie Traore and Louis Marsh, all missing their shots, and Lincoln City going through 3-2 on penalties. It shocks me. It shocks me because obviously Sheffield United, new to the Premier League, it was a full-strength squad by all accounts. They obviously made some switches at halftime. We saw McBurney come off and stuff like that. But I wanted to get the lads' thoughts because Sheffield United, new to the Premier League. Maybe we'll start with you, Steve. Are you expecting much from Sheffield United? Because they actually did very well in the Championship last season, holding off onto second place just behind Burnley. And I would have thought that Burnley and Sheffield United were probably, looking like they're going to stay up. But time will tell. And I wanted to know what you thought of this one, Steve.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. Sheffield United are one of my favourites to go down. I'm not impressed with them at all. They've showed the gulf in class between the Championship and the Premier League. I think they'll be down there with Luton for most of the season. It's going to be touch and go. They've got to hope that there's 3 teams worse than them in the Premier League. That game last night. Again, it comes down to the Carabao Cup and how seriously some teams will take it. Obviously, it was Notts Forest against Burnley as well. Neither team would really want to progress because they're going to be down there, battling for points in the Premier League. But yeah, listen, it's a great night for Lincoln, great night for their supporters, and that's what you like to see. In these games, it's a big opportunity for them to come up against a Premier League team and get a result, and they managed to do it. And it's the money. We're saying £100,000 for the prize money in the Carabao Cup final isn't a great deal for a team like Newcastle or Manchester City. But you know what? For a team like Lincoln to progress into the next round, they get they get a lot of money, and it's exactly the same in the FA Cup in the really early stages when the non-league teams get through. You're talking. I went on a run a few years back when I was at Dunstan with with them. We got to the through the preliminary rounds. Then we got up to the first round proper and ended up having a game against Gateshead to get into the next round. And I think we had 2,000 supporters down at Dunstan, and we had a huge amount of money come in from that. You know what I mean? And the prize money doubles. It goes from 1,500 to 3,000 to 4,500 and so on and so forth. And you think of that money coming into the non-league, and that's exactly the same for Lincoln. That will be worth a lot of money to them, and they'll be able to do something with that, invest in a player, invest in something in the ground, whatever they want. But that's why it is the magic of the cup still for lower league teams. But yeah, listen, that was great. I know it meant extra to Borough fans, but that was a great result for them last night. Well done to Lincoln.
And I think one of the big shocks for me, obviously, as well, was that it was a pretty full strength Sheffield United squad, and that's what I think surprised me the mostly, was because I saw Burnley and I had a look over there, and I saw Luton obviously the other night. And look, to be honest with you, it's always interesting watching the 3 teams go up into the Premier League and seeing how they go, because obviously as a Borough fan, as a Sunderland fan as well, you sort of keep a closer eye on the Championship teams because you sort of want to see what that gulf is. Where if you dream of promotion, then you want to know what that gap is. And obviously, seeing all the big money signings that going to Sheffield United in Cameron Archer and stuff like that, and they also saw Hammer as well from Coventry, who tore the Championship up at Coventry last season. So there's been some big signings, but they're all Championship players, as well as Luton, who have all signed some Championship players. What did you think of the game? Michael, sorry. Michael, so I thought you were going to talk. Sorry.
I was going to say, to be honest, I'm rubbish with names, so I wouldn't. Don't worry about it.
No, I knew. I just didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's totally fine. To be fair, I mean, obviously, I was coming back from work yesterday, and I barely had time to look at the results. But obviously, look, I'm just looking at Sheffield United's team that you've mentioned, like Chris Basham, John Egan, is it Omar Bogle? Oh no, that's not Omar Bogle.
Yeah, Omar Bogle. Yeah,
I can't remember. Yeah, there you go. McBurney, Archer, Norwood, Brooks. I mean, goodness me. So I mean, if you look at the promoted teams, I mean, to me, it looks like, I mean, Sheffield United. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have they sold? I've forgotten what his first name is, but Ndai, the lad who was so effective for them up front last year, he's gone for 20 million.
Gone.
I think it is.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. Sander Berg.
Yeah.
Is it Sander Berg or Berger or Berge? I don't know how you pronounce these names.
Yeah, he's gone as well. Yeah.
He's gone to Burnley, so that's what I mean. I think, to me, Sheffield United and Luton in particular look like they've signed players that are going to be good for the Championship in a year's time.
I completely agree.
I'm with Steve on this. I'm with Steve on this. I think Sheffield United and Luton are both going to be pretty much relegated. And if you want to look at it from a very selfish perspective, and you'd probably be interested in this as well, Rye, that if neither of us get promoted this year, which is, I mean, it's early days, but it's obviously a possibility, then you probably want a couple of Leicester, Southampton and Leeds to go up, and then you want Sheffield United and Luton to replace them, because although they've got players who would be lethal at championship level, or should be, the league will be weaker, and I think it would be then a better chance to try and go up should neither of us do it this year. But to answer your question, I mean, I think Sheffield United and Luton, I think, are going to be relegated. I mean, Burnley depends with Vincent Kompany if he stays, and depends what type of things he can do in the window and whatnot. But I think Burnley will be all right. But I just
Burnley a chance,
for the other two. Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Yeah. I think it's funny to obviously looking at the Premier League last season, and we've constantly my biggest thing is obviously watching Everton and the way they perform and how close they've been flirting with that relegation for the past couple of seasons. And will they, won't they? Obviously getting a new signing in just over last night, and I just think obviously if Everton can hold on again, then we might see the top three championship teams come straight back down. But I think out of all three of them, and no disrespect to any of them, I do think Vincent Kompany is the most promising in terms of manager quality at Burnley. I think they've gotten a really good manager in Vincent Kompany, and I would actually argue that if Pep was ever to leave Man City, then I think Vincent Kompany's probably lined up as their next, as a manager in waiting, if you will. I think that's
definitely not, mate. I've got to disagree with that. Like, there's no way in the world he's going to end up at Manchester City.
Up. Yeah, I reckon
he's not good enough for that job.
They will.
What?
I don't think he will straight away. I don't think he will straight away, but I think eventually, depending on how his career progresses, I could see him taking that.
He's not good enough.
I think he will. I think in a couple more years, I think he will. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think I completely agree. And what's scary for me? Not scary, I guess. But if we are in the championship next year, Michael, I think that obviously seeing Luton come down and possibly Sheffield United, I think Luton have signed a bloody good championship team.
Yeah.
We've seen all the top championship players go to Luton. So in Kaminsky and the goalkeeper. They've obviously gotten Aaron Ramsey, who was the midfielder, maestro for us as well. So it's incredible to see. Sorry, Aaron Ramsey went to Burnley. I apologise, but I was thinking of a couple of other signings.
Ross Barkley.
Incredible.
Who? Ross Barkley.
Ross Barkley as well.
Is he not an extra in Casualty?
Well. Yeah. So it's incredible to see, and they just what Luton do, and especially obviously with their ground, and we were talking about that yesterday, and having to drop $10 million into it to upgrade it to get to Premier League standard and stuff like that. It's going to be one that it's one of those ones when I think do you guys remember when Blackpool went up to the Premier? It's kind of got that sort of feeling to it a bit as well.
Don't forget the garden fence, part of the upgrade.
Yeah,
they put the garden fence in.
Having to get a higher thing.
What about? I'm just
really got into the addition of someone's backyard.
Indeed. I'm just looking at this Carrier Bag Cup draw. I mean, where are the shocks going to come in the next round? Because you've got quite a few banana skins there. We've talked about Borough being at Bradford. That is a potential banana skin. And knowing how the Borough can, them absolute masters of grabbing defeat from the jaws of success at times. So that could happen. We've got Burnley at Salford City. We've got Luton at Exeter. Just looking down the list, we've got West Ham at Lincoln. There's some big banana skins there. Where do you see it coming? Where do you see the shock coming from?
Definitely Salford Burnley is for me the big one, because you've got that whole, like we said yesterday, the whole class of 92 thing going on there as well. And I think Exeter Luton's a big one at the other St James's Park. I think you've got Luton, who will be up against it, against Exeter. I don't know anything about Exeter, I've got to be perfectly honest. I've been there, but I don't know anything about the football team. And then after that, you're looking down the list. There's a few Premier League ties in there. Lincoln, are they going to do it again against West Ham at home? That's an intriguing tie. And other than that, you got a lot of Premier League classes. It's Fulham against Norwich, isn't it, bud?
Yeah. I think it's interesting.
I mean, as much as the others won't want to hear me say this, maybe Bradford Borough, that could potentially be an upset depending on what team they feel out. It could be,
yeah. Knowing the way the Borough go about things sometimes, yes. I'm hand on my heart, I pray and believe Middlesbrough will do okay, but we did see Bradford knock us out a couple of years ago, so I am watching that one. But my close watch here is Stoke City. Obviously, we saw Stoke City with an incredible result against Rotherham in the 6-1 victory. Yes. And we also saw Blackburn Rovers dispatch of Harrogate.
Harrogate.
Put eight
I know,
8-0
that was insane.
Past them. So a couple of big results for 2 championships there, and we see Stoke City lining up with Bournemouth now. So I think that one's going to be a big watch. And as I said, I keep saying it, but I don't want to harp on it, but I think Stoke is a bit of a dark horse for me in your ex-manager, Michael, in taking over there. And I'm sorry to rub salt into the wound because it was a bit of an ugly exit, but I do remember Alex Neil from the playoff final against Norwich, and I hate to rate him a little bit. And I think Stoke have gotten some pretty good signings through that door that it seems to be sort of under the radar a little bit as well. So yeah, watching Stoke versus Bournemouth for me, and then obviously Blackburn Rovers and Cardiff as well, another championship tie there. But it's full of Premier League ties, isn't it? It's going to be.
It's full of scalps in the making, isn't it?
It is. Yeah,
there's a lot of scalps in them. There's a lot of scalps in the making there for me. Here's one I'll ask you then to see what you think. With Newcastle Man City, like obviously that's a tie that I think could go any way. If Newcastle beat Man City, would that be considered an upset or not because it's at St James's? I think it would be if it was at the Etihad, but at St James's, anything can literally happen. Steve, I watched you guys play them last year, and I've never seen the 3-3 draw, and I've never seen a team press Man City as effectively as what you did that day. Yes, there were days where Man City showed their quality, but you didn't let them settle whatsoever. And I'm just curious to think whether you think it would be an upset. If any of you think it would be an upset if Newcastle were to beat them.
Michael, I do think so. I think it would be an upset still because we're not at Manchester City's level. You know, they've got. I keep saying this, but they've had a 13-14 year head start on us. You know, we can joke on about the Saudi money, but Newcastle haven't had time to really utilise that. The financial fair play restrictions do count a lot for us. You know, Newcastle are abiding by them, and rightly so. And ultimately they are so far ahead of us, and it showed at the Etihad. You know, we lost 1-0, but you know we aren't at their level. So Newcastle knocking Manchester City out would be a shock. I think maybe more arrogant Newcastle fans who think we're on their level, or people who are maybe slightly unrealistic would say, well, it's not a shock, but it is. We're not at their level yet. We've got a long way to go, and until Newcastle are regularly winning trophies, competing in the Champions League on a season by season basis, we've got a long way to go, and we've still got a bit of Stockholm syndrome within our support as well, because we always feel that there's a bump around the corner, and that's something that's inbred in Newcastle fans, Sunderland fans, and Middlesbrough fans.
Yeah, it's a northeast thing.
Every time we think we're getting somewhere, or we're getting above our station that the rest of the country feel, we always seem to get crashed back down to earth. And that's whether that's Sunderland going to the playoff finals and getting beat, whether that's Newcastle getting to a cup final, an FA Cup final, or a League Cup final and getting beat. Whatever it is, whether it's sickening being a Northeast fan at times, but that's why we love it. That's why we keep going.
It's every time you think you're doing something, it's like, oh no, there's a catch. What am I supposed to endure at the hand of this success here? We're not allowed to have this.
I think if you do a sports psychology degree, it's called choking, and I think that's what we do very, very well up here. We choke at the big table.
Well, as someone who stood at Wembley 4 years ago and watched Charlton's last second winner, yes, I think I can testify to that.
Oh, don't worry, mate. We can
go. Final, yes.
At least you had hope for 88 minutes, mate. We go to Wembley, we concede after 42 seconds. So that puts a dampener on the day.
But at the end of the day, we didn't even score that day. We got gifted a goal and we still couldn't win.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I've mapped it all out. Actually, I've mapped it all out right. I'm just looking at this now. I'm looking at all the fixtures. So obviously, City are going to beat Newcastle, but they're going to draw Liverpool or Arsenal in the next round. And then you look at Lincoln are going to knock West Ham out. Salford City are going to knock Burnley out. Man United Palace. There's going to be another Premier League team go out there. Chelsea Brighton. They're going to draw themselves in the next, in the fourth round. The Borough's going to progress and draw Salford City at the Riverside. It's going to be a Man City Borough final. I can see it. It's in the stars.
I can see it easy. I think Middlesbrough, and I think when that lines it up, we're probably going to get the treble. We're going to win the championship, win the Carabao. We're going to be the first team to do the treble from the championship. It's written in the stars.
Michael, this is the problem with Ryan, because he's in the afternoon now. I think Ryan drinks trebles before he comes on.
See, he's had more time to soak it in, hasn't he? He's had more time to get himself to the point where he's like, yes, we're doing everything.
I've had a couple more
Europe
coffees
next season. We're going to be in the Premier League. Everything is ours.
Believe it.
I keep telling him it was only Bolton Wanderers. It was only Bolton Wanderers, right?
Keep a lid on it. Before we wrapped it up, though, I did want to touch on that Salford City versus Burnley. And there's been a lot of criticism. We saw Gabby Abonglahel the ex-Aston Villa striker, come out and talk about the fact that Gary Neville was commentating on his club, on the club that he co-owns. And we spoke about this very shortly yesterday, but I wanted to get both of you guys' thoughts on, do we think Gary Neville will be able to commentate again if on the Salford versus Burnley game? Or do you think the criticism that's come from wide and far that, and we got Gabby, as I said, Gabby Abognahor saying, why is he commentating on his own club that he co-owns? It didn't sound great.
I thought personally there was nothing wrong with it. And I said this yesterday, I just think, he's entitled to, he's employed by Sky, and I don't think, I don't think he was too biased. I watched the whole game, and I thought he made some great points. He gives a good insight into his own players. But yeah, I can completely understand why somebody on the other side wouldn't be too happy, because of course when Salford scored, he was over the moon. But it's no different to Jamie Carragher commentating on Liverpool's games, and he does that week in, week out. And Carragher, when there's that infamous line a few years ago when Mo Salah scored, and Mo Salah, you little beauty, you know what I mean? I mean, it's he was celebrating. So for me, it's no different at all. I think it's obviously going to be upsetting when your team gets beat, but that I think it's just sour grapes on his behalf.
Cracking. Well, we've got to take a break so Rai can recharge his afternoon glass. Now he's been accused of having one. And we'll be back after this.
The important thing to remember about accidents at work is that these days the law imposes such a strong duty of care upon the employer, they're basically obliged to ensure that accidents don't happen. So if an accident does happen, it's likely, in some sense, to be their fault, even if you feel partly to blame. So if you've had an accident at work, just give us a call.
Choose the one you know at the
Clark.
My debut 1990 September, Bristol City away, to get that opportunity, what thousands of Geordies only dream of.
Hignett.
Playing against Chelsea and to score the first goal there is something that still lives with me now, and it's what most people will talk to me about.
Williams.
A first goal for Sunderland away at Leicester. It was a left foot volley. I didn't realise my left foot was for kicking the ball with it as well. I thought it was just for standing it.
Across the Northeast, it's the three legends.
Fridays at 6 on the Cats, the Reds and the Toon.
Steve and Rai. The Northeast Footy Breakfast.
Right across the Northeast, the Reds, the Cat and the Toon.
If ever it was possible to make someone feel homesick even though they're still at home, we're trying. So Kylie Minogue, Australia, Rai, especially for you, mate. There you go, my sister-in-law.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget that, Dave. Don't you worry about that,
mate. I do try to please.
You could have been a token Aussie with me. I could have gone to the wedding and everything, Dave. I tell you.
Oh, g'day.
Wedding of the century, Dave versus Danny. You know what I mean?
That's it, mate. I'd have been walking around the beach with a pair of thongs on. Hang on, which is thongs in Australia? I've got to get my head around this.
It's thongs, yep.
It's thongs, right?
It's
in
thongs
Australia, they're on your feet. Yeah, okay.
Yep, they're on our feet. Yep, every day of the week. Don't you worry about that.
Barbie, whatever you do. Okay, fantastic. Now, the amount of time and coverage we've given the EFL for its League Cup, they should be giving us commentary rights for free, because even Sky doesn't allocate as much time as we've given it this morning. So let's get off the Carrier Bag Cup. Let's get on to Deadline. It's Deadline Day, fellas. It's Deadline
Day. It's Deadline Day. Oh my goodness, is there hope and prayers in the wind for Borough? And we'll obviously get the thoughts of Newcastle and Sunderland from the boys as well. But I am very, very excited as a Middlesbrough fan. I'm thinking there's going to be two today. We have been linked with Leeds United in Greenwood coming in, the striker there, and Lewis O'Brien from Nottingham Forest as well. That's the two that I think seem to be semi-concrete leading into Deadline Day for us. The only out that seems to be kind of cemented, and Dave, I think he's had a bit of a rough trot at Middlesbrough, is obviously Martin Piero. He seems to just not be able to fit in. The rumour is that he just doesn't fit into the area. He just can't get comfortable. He can't get acclimatised. Obviously, there's a bit of a language barrier there. So it does look like Martin Piero's Middlesbrough days are over, which is a sad story because I had a lot of hopes for Martin. And obviously, we saw him come in a couple of years ago now, and he's only played a handful of games, the poor lad, and then obviously sent out on loan again. But it does look like Martin Piero's days are over as a Borough lad, but obviously backed up with two loan signings, I might add as well, not permanent signings in O'Brien and Greenwood. So I think we'll go to Steve and what you are expecting from Newcastle, and I guess we'll go with like the ins and outs for the day.
Absolutely nothing, mate. We'll not do any
nothing,
business.
Yeah.
We'll do no business. I think the only thing that we thought might happen was, potentially a centre half coming in if Botman was injured. But Botman, obviously, we'll find out more from Eddie Howe's press conference tomorrow. But Botman's injury isn't as bad as anyone thought. And Newcastle United have come out and backed Jamal Lascelles.
I saw that.
In the public domain now. And I think if Lascelles had to go, if he'd been shipped out because of whatever had happened, or if Besiktas had taken a gamble and come in and with a last minute bid, then maybe we would have had to replace him. But Newcastle's business is done. I don't see any business at all, and I think we'll have a very, very quiet transfer deadline day.
There you go. And what about you, Michael, over at Sunderland? Will you get that magical number 9, that striker that you've been begging for?
I really hope so, because I can't be bothered with another meltdown. Look, it's made no secret that's what we need, and I think obviously the news has come out about Ross Stewart that it looks like there's a good chance he's off to Southampton. Obviously, look, the striker I want, and I think Borough have been linked with him as well, is Tom Cannon from Everton. That's the one that. Yep. The problem is, you guys know, if you haven't got parachute money, you haven't got anywhere near as much to spend, have you? Which is the problem. No. But I think if we sold Ross Stewart, then buying Tom Cannon from Everton would be what I would do. Whether that happens or not, however, is a different kettle of fish, because I think I heard Norwich have put a £7 million bid in for him, which... Yeah, that's what I heard as well, the problem is, if we're going to get Tom Cannon, that's not going to happen until the Stewart sale goes. So this is both the magic and the despair of deadline day coming up, where the deals start to ramp up and get crazy. Start to get absolutely crazy. To be fair, one of the signings you mentioned that could be semi-concrete for Borough, Lewis O'Brien, is someone I've been banging on about for weeks, because another position I think we need is a slightly more experienced defensive midfielder to help. Is Dan Neil and Pierre Ekwa our central two at the moment. I love a lot, and I think they're very good players. But it's a 46-game season. There's a lot of midweek games, injuries kick in, suspensions kick in, and I think we could do with a little bit of extra cover in that position. And he's someone I've said for ages we should be going for. So I'll tell you what, to be fair, to link it to Borough, if you get him, I think that's a very good signing for this level. Very good signing.
Why is he not getting his game?
Lewis?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Nottingham Forest. The money that they've been throwing around for their squad depth at the moment is incredible. They are spending more money than I reckon. I love, and we'll get it up here very soon with the stats in the most spent teams for this. But Nottingham Forest are throwing around some money, I tell you. And Lewis O'Brien simply fell down the pecking order. He was an absolute star for them before they obviously got promoted. But since getting promoted, they've just went out and bought everyone. And I think it's just it's just a case of falling down the pecking order compared to the players that they have brought in. So I think it's interesting. And just before we wrap it with the Sunderland thing, I think it's very interesting for me on watching Sunderland obviously across the pond, because obviously they are lacking a big striker up the front. We see Bellingham rocking in the striker role for them. If they do end up selling Ross Stewart, I do worry that because it does look like Tom Cannon's going to go to Norwich, and who then is left at Sunderland to provide those goals and that strike force for them would be. I'd have I feel for Mogga, because I think it's definitely a tough time at Sunderland trying to find a striker, because he said it in the presser just the other day that they don't grow on trees, and we've been lucky and fortunate enough now to maybe get Latte Lath and obviously now Sam Greenwood from Leeds as well, a couple of strikers there, and then we've obviously got Alex Gilbert, the youngster that came in from Brentford as well. So the depth we've got is actually there, but if you end up closing deadline day and you've got no depth, especially in a long championship team, you chuck in a cup run there for the Borough, then it can be a lot of games, in a lot of short space. We see a lot of midweek games in the championship, so it can be a tough run, but I think it's it's definitely a big day for two of the Northeast clubs, that's for sure. Interesting to see that Newcastle are probably done, but I think obviously they've the signings they've got off the board. I wanted to ask you, Steve, what has been the biggest and best signing for Newcastle in this window, and what's been the one that you probably didn't really want to let go but had to go anyway?
To be honest, we've been spoiled for choice with incomings. In this particular window, I think it's between Tonali and Barnes for me. Barnes gives you something a little bit different on that left-hand side, but Gordon has started the season well, and has now managed to add, a goal to his play. But I think Tonali just adds something different to our team. He gives you a little bit of steel. He gives you a little bit of bite. But he's cool, calm, and collected. He's become a cult healer already. So Tonali is probably the one player who for me stands out. Outgoings is difficult because I wasn't an ESM fan. So Alan St Maximin going out for me was a blessing. It wasn't a disappointment. I guess he's not out on a permanent deal, but Jamal Lewis is probably more of a disappointment that he didn't manage to find his potential at Newcastle, because ultimately Jamal Lewis, the left back, he's gone to Watford in the Championship on loan, came with a lot of promise, and I think we all felt that Eddie Howe was going to get the best out of him, but he got an injury, and unfortunately for him, that set him back, and then he fell behind, obviously Dan Burn, Matt Targett, so he didn't quite make it, and we're always disappointed with local lads who don't make it. And Matty Longstaff, of course, Sean Longstaff's brother, he got his debut under Steve Bruce. He scored a wonderful winner against Manchester United, but then didn't really take off at Newcastle. Got a horrendous UCL injury, and Newcastle looked after him, but now they've released him, and he's without a club at the moment. I mean, Matty Longstaff would be worth a gamble for Middlesbrough or Sunderland. He's fit now.
Agreed. And
if they could get him to go to one of those northeast clubs, Matty Longstaff could have a similar kind of effect that, like, say, Lee Clark did at Sunderland. He's forget about the T-shirt, Michael. Lee Clark's held in high esteem. I was out with a lot of Sunderland fans yesterday who I know, and Lee Clark always comes up in conversation. And Matty Longstaff could do a similar job for Sunderland, in that role, if you could persuade him to go to the, go 10 miles down the road and go to the Stadium of Light.
I mean, to be fair,
I was just going to say I'm lost here. I'm hearing ACM, UCL. It's like my son. He keeps going, he's a CDM. What the hell's going on? But I was quite pleased when you actually clarified it. ASM was Alan St Maxim, because I thought it was some sexual preference. I just didn't know. But anyway, Michael, you were saying.
No, I was going to say with Matty Longstaff, is he a Geordie? Is he actually a Newcastle fan coming through the ranks?
Yeah. He's a big Newcastle fan. Yeah, him and Sean, both Newcastle fans.
In which case, let's rule out. Sorry, let's rule out the possibility of him coming to Sunderland. To be fair, I mean, obviously, I'm someone who, I don't know what you guys think, but it's always the idea of taking ex-Newcastle or ex-your rivals players, basically, or Middlesbrough taking ex-Sunderland players or taking ex-Leeds players, whoever it is. I'm of the opinion that I don't mind it as long as they're going to improve your team. But I think with Matty Longstaff, and if Matty Longstaff's good enough, then I'd absolutely have him. But I do wonder with him, because he's come through. The difference is he's come through the ranks at Newcastle, a big Newcastle fan. I think Borough would certainly be much more likely for him as a destination than us. But you guys might disagree with me.
I mean, we saw it interesting at Middlesbrough, obviously getting Kieran Dyer. We got Kieran Dyer a few years ago, and that was a bit of that's interesting. Obviously, Kieran Dyer, one of the the Newcastle originals, I would argue. So we've seen it, a few come through the Middlesbrough gates from Newcastle. Not so many Sunderland, but I'm interested to hear from you, Michael, as well, where you think what's going to happen with Danny Bath. Danny Bath has been a very interesting sort of watching tale, because I think he's obviously wanted to go and pushed for it to go, but now Mogga seems to think he's staying. What do you think the latest is going to be for Danny Bath at midnight tonight?
Yeah, that's one of the sagas that's kind of been rumbling on all summer, really. I think, obviously he's been one of an experienced trio, with Lyndon Gooch and Alex Pritchard being the other two. But Danny Bath in particular, I mean, he was voted our fans' player of the season last year. Yeah. And for good and deservedly. And I mean, there were a lot of good performers last year, but he was certainly in amongst it, because he was a very tough, no-nonsense centre-half, and I love stuff like that. But with Danny Bath, it's a funny one, because as you guys have probably seen, the path we go down now is youth, and we're trying to give young players a really good, consistent run in the team. But obviously, we've got Dan Ballard and Luke O'Nien, who was signed as an attacking midfielder in League One, and now is a centre half. Who would have thought that? But they're both kind of the main two at the moment. And Danny Bath, I'd personally keep Danny Batth. I don't think it makes sense, at least immediately, to let him go, because we've got two other young centre backs in Jensen Sealed and Nectarius Triantis. Nectar Triantis, by the way, what a first name. But anyway, you've got them two coming through the ranks, and Danny Batth for me would be the perfect person to blood these guys in, to share, pass on knowledge and experience to them. But a lot of it has got to be the fact that Danny Batth might be one of our higher earners, and it might be that we need to free up wages to bring other players in. So my instinct says I think he'll stay, but it's deadline day. You can't rule anything out. Anything mental can happen, really. And you've got to remember, for him as well, he might want longer term security, won't he? You know, if he's got a chance at a 2-3 year contract elsewhere, then fair enough. I don't blame the lad. You know, he's someone who served us well. He was instrumental in getting us out of League One, out of that doldrum of a league. Sorry, I hate League One. But he was able to re-establish us in the Championship, I'd like to think. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to keep him, but I don't think we're going to give him another contract after this season, apparently. And if he wants another contract elsewhere for security, then I don't blame him for going.
From Wickham to Whitley Bay, Stonygate to Shields, Doggy to Darlow Backlane, Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
G'day. There you go, Ryan.
G'day.
Fresh out of Melbourne.
Shrimp on the barbie.
That's it. Put your thongs on the barbie, mate. You'll be fine.
Let's do it.
Yeah, indeed.
It's an Aussie day all round here. I love it.
Forgot to mention, by the way, if you want to bash your comments in, you can. WhatsApp. I keep forgetting. It's like an hour into the show, and I've forgotten to tell people how they can get in touch with us. I'm failing miserably, sounding like Rod Stewart. We are sailing. 0330 043 2002. That's 0330 043 2002. It was a dilemma last night, fellas. So a couple of the guys who I used to go to school with, and those days we were writing with chalk on slates, came up from London, and it's like, we haven't been together for 2 years, let's have a get together. And I'm sitting there thinking, I've got the breakfast show to do. And they're going, we'll have a few beers, then we'll go for a curry. And I'm going, we'll be finished by 10 o'clock. That's enough sleep. I'll be good. And we get to 10:30, and they're still going, there's time for another round of drinks, guys, before we go for a curry. And I'm going, tick, the time's ticking on. 1 o'clock this morning, we left the curry house. 1 o'clock, so that's why I'm sounding tell you what, I'm going to do some voiceovers because I've got a Rod Stewart voice. Yes.
I'm glad you put the WhatsApp number out there, because Danny Minogue, if you are listening, please text in. I want to hear from you, Danny. It's me, Rye, the Aussie. Please, Danny, if you are out there and you are listening, please send us a text. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, get your comments in.
Talk about beating him while he's down, poor bloke.
Yeah, no. Kicking me right in the pair. That's what he's doing. 0330 043 2002. We'd love your thoughts. Whether it's on the Carrier Bag Cup, whether it's on who do you want? Come on. Sunderland fans, Borough fans, Newcastle fans. Who do you want through the door before 11 p.m. UK time? Because we're truly international on this show tonight. 0330 043 2002. Macca actually was on the show yesterday. He's actually sent a message through for you, Michael. No, he's not saying, what are you doing in my hot seat? What he's saying is, what do you think of the Ross Stewart situation and the lack of communication from the club to its supporters?
Well, if you're talking about, I'll address the latter point quickly. The communication from club to supporters, to be frank, half the time there is none. We are, off the pitch in particular, we are an absolute shambles. But I'm taking it, Macca, probably means in relation to transfers. I don't mind the fact that a lot of our transfers were not widely broadcast from the club, because it would be suicide to do that in football terms, because you're thinking, this is who we're after, and then the club will suddenly rise the price up. Everyone knows you're after them. I don't quite know if that's what Macca meant, to be fair. With regards to the Ross Stewart situation, I've been at the point where I've grown quite, because for about a year now we've had this contract situation going on, the and ahhing. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is he going to sign? Is he going to do this? And I've just grown sick of it, to be perfectly honest. And they've got to look at it this way. He's had two massive injuries last year, the second of which, both injuries kept him out for 3 months. The second of which was an Achilles injury. Now, I don't know football injuries anywhere near as much as medical staff do, but apparently the Achilles injury is very, very bad. Apparently it's one of the worst ones you can get. Now, the problem is... Even though his contract was up this summer, but we had an extension for an extra year, which we've activated, hence why he's still with us now. But the problem that becomes, do you then want to sell him to get some money in to reinvest potentially, or do you run the risk of keeping him, letting his contract run down for free, but he might be fit? The problem is, you don't know if he's going to be fit, and you don't know even if he is fit, is he going to come back the same player? And that will hold true even if he doesn't go. There is always a chance that he might not be the same player. With the interest, apparently yesterday it was reported there was a bid of 6 million, I think it was, from Southampton, rising to 7.5 at the moment. To be honest, I mean, if you look at what did Borough get for Chuba Akpom again?
12.5, yeah, 12.5 with that on.
To be fair, if you guys have got that for a player that was consistently playing and is one of the he was the top scorer last year in the championship, wasn't he?
Was, yeah,
sure,
29 goals.
Yeah, if you have got that for him, apparently we're looking for 10 million for Stewart, and I'll tell you what, if we get that, then we've done really well. We've done really well considering we played only 13 or so games. Yeah, go on.
What's interesting to me is Mogga coming out yesterday, and talking to I think he was talking to the Gazette, maybe, or Northern Echo. My apologies, Northern Echo. And I just want to quote what Mogga did say in that, because I think this tells a lot. Obviously, we're talking about communication from the club back to the fans, and this is what Mogga had to say. It says, "I still believe somewhere along the line the supporters have still got a huge part to play with Ross Stewart. Okay, he's not signed a deal, but if he is scoring goals, enjoying his football, the crowd are singing his name, he's their hero. Why wouldn't you want to sign for a club with 46,000 supporters all singing your name? Ross just wants to be where he is loved and cared for, and there isn't a bigger, better football club in this league than this one." Now, Mogga's obviously had a few bevies and they said that because he's forgotten about Borough down the road being a bigger club. But that for me is very interesting coming from Mogga, obviously still putting the hopes into the fans and to the reporters that he thinks Stewart's going to stay, and he's put it also back on the fans that they're going to have a huge part to play with in Ross Stewart staying, which I don't think is, they've got any part to play. Of course, a Sunderland fan would want Ross Stewart to stay, but it's interesting that Mogga would come out and say that for me, a day or two before the Deadline transfer day, and then we see obviously the Southampton links and stuff. So,
to be fair, I had a long day. I was out most of yesterday with work, and I think that's the first time I've heard that quote. So that's very interesting, actually. To be honest, I think these days I wish fans had a part to play. But let's be honest, these days it's about money. And to be fair to him, if I'm going to be balanced, I've always had the viewpoint that I think Ross Stewart's had a year to sign now. Why hasn't he signed? But the problem I think I've got is that from his perspective, I'm going to be nuanced. His perspective is he's on, I think he's still on the wage that we signed him in League One, which was like 2,500 a week. Now, to be fair, in League One, I understand it then because he was an unknown in English football at that point. Obviously now he's worth so much more than that, regardless of his injuries. I think for his perspective, he's now this is probably his last chance now for a big contract to try and set him up for life. Yeah. And I think Southampton, as harsh as it is, as horrible as it is to really, because, with all due respect, I think we are a huge club and I think we should be able to pay these type of wages. However, Southampton coming down from...
Don't go there. You cannot say Southampton's bigger than any of the three North East clubs.
No, they're not. I agree 100% they're not. But my point, unfortunately, though, Southampton's also come down from the Premier League, haven't they? So they've got wages that we, as of right now, we can't compete with. And it's... I think the day that we can't compete with Southampton for wages, I suppose, is quite depressing, really. But there we go. Because we are definitely bigger than Southampton for me. All three of us are, really. But the point is, I've accepted he's going, and I think for me, I'm okay. I can live with the idea of him going now, because even if, say, you kept him until January, can't he sign a pre-contract with other clubs anyway? So we're probably going to not get a fee, and if we do, it's going to be very, very minimal. So for me, and you've got to remember, he's not back till October apparently. So is he worth losing a few million on for the sake of 2 months of football?
Let's get a completely unbiased view on this. Let's ask a Newcastle fan about a Sunderland question. Steve, am I missing something here? We're talking about Ross Stewart. We're talking about offers from Southampton. We're talking about going before the window closes. But the guy's got an Achilles injury. He wouldn't pass a medical, would he? How can he sign for someone?
Yeah, it is a strange situation, isn't it? And this is what transfer deadlines days do, because you have this cut-off point, and people have to take gambles, I guess, at some point. But signing an injured player, it does make you scratch your head a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, Stewart looked a good player at that level. Sunderland, Sunderland, I would imagine, really wanted to keep a hold of him. But this kind of thing always leaves a sour taste in the mouth. Southampton are desperate. They've lost a lot of players because of the relegation. And look, players aren't just looked at in 5-minute spells. They will have watched Stewart. They'll have updates on his medical situation. They'll know when he's going to come back. They'll know what he can do. But ultimately, those who pay his wages have got to be sure that they're going to get value for money, and it's a strange one. It really is. I'm going to be fascinated to see what business both Sunderland and Middlesbrough do, because ultimately this really dictates, how both teams do this season. Because I keep saying it, the championship is a marathon, not a sprint. It doesn't matter if you get off to a bad start. If you can find that run of winning games, you can get yourself into the playoff situation very quickly. And if the teams who are leading at the start to falter, you can find yourself in that chase for automatic promotion, which is where Sunderland and Middlesbrough both found themselves last season, and rightly so. So for me, this is probably the biggest transfer window for both Sunderland and Middlesbrough for many a year. They've got to get it right. It's interesting to hear that Sunderland have got problems with communication from the owners, because that's the problem that Newcastle had for 14 years with Mike Ashley. Lack of communication. What I will say as well is I did mention I was out yesterday with quite a few Sunderland fans, and the consensus of opinion I got from them yesterday wasn't that they weren't talking about the transfer window. They were talking about the managerial situation, and they were saying that they feel that the owners don't have the same kind of feeling of how they want to progress as Mowbray does, and they feel that eventually Mowbray will end up back at Middlesbrough. They feel that Mowbray is not a natural fit for the owners at Sunderland, and that Mowbray will leave or will get pushed out, and they feel he will end up back at Middlesbrough at some point. Once Carrick goes. So it's an interesting one. It's interesting to hear different fans' views. They obviously have been listening to the Breakfast Show as well. The lads, they thoroughly enjoyed it. The Sunderland fans. For me personally, it's great to see. It's great to see that that there's going to be some kind of activity in the transfer window. I wish you lads all the best, because you need it, and whoever doesn't do the business is going to struggle this season, I think.
I wish we were in your position where we didn't have to do any business.
Just on that, because I mean, Steve is adamant obviously that Newcastle are closed for business, but I certainly think, and I obviously keep an eye on Newcastle, and obviously have a good affection for Steve now. We've been on for a week, and I need to look after old Steve. I'm very surprised that on deadline day that Newcastle aren't going to dip in and try and get a centre back. I'm just worried. We saw the sight of Sven Botman limping off the field last weekend, and obviously we got Lascelles in the drama off field. I mean, I think there was a talk of was it Joachim Anderson from Crystal Palace that you were tutored with as well. Obviously Harry Maguire as well. Do you think you're left short if you don't get that centre back today, Steve?
No, definitely not. I mean, I know a lot of people feel we will be, but if Botman is out for the trip to Brighton, then he won't have any issues, moving players around, and I think Dan Burn will end up at centre half alongside Fabian Schär, and I think he'll bring Lewis Hall in at left back. I think Target. There has been a lot of talk about Target potentially going in this window. I don't think Eddie Howe will want him to leave, not with the Champions League, on the horizon. I think we'll end up with no ins and no outs, and I think I just think it'll be very quiet. I mean, obviously we've had the deal for Isaac Hayden collapse. I think it'll be very difficult to find anybody else to come in. I know there was rumours yesterday of 2 or 3 Championship clubs wanting to take a gamble on Hendrick. That could be a surprise, but I don't think there'll be any incomings. I really don't.
Okay.
Well, if we're here tomorrow and Newcastle have got a new signing, Steve, I tell you, I'm coming for you.
Well, you saw what he did with Carrick. He challenged Carrick to play the GOAT and said he would score, and he came on and did. So you just never know. This man has a crystal ball. Right,
Mystic Rye.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Can you put the wig on, Rye? We'd like to see that. The black wig. I don't know if you know who Mystic Meg is. I don't know if you've got to that part of English tradition. Mystic Meg.
I'm putting the wig on. I've got the wig on right now.
Good man.
I'm telling you, Joachim Anderson, is it Joachim? I apologise for butchering your name, from Crystal Palace is going to Newcastle. I'm just saying, I've put it on there. Steve, it's for you. I got you. I'm putting it out there in the universe.
If you can sort it out, right, that would be great. I'm just waiting for Dave to come up with a story now about Mystic Meg and the dates that didn't go ahead.
Sorry, Steve, I'm disappointing you, mate. I've got nothing on Mystic Meg other than I used to read her horoscopes and chuckle.
She must have seen you coming, Dave.
That's it. Hey! And by the way, Mystic Rye, can you give me 6 numbers for the lottery for Saturday, please? Right,
I've got you covered in that as well.
That's it. Quick break. We'll be back. And I suppose it's worth mentioning, we did throw out the challenge yesterday to the local musos, local bands, and say, come on, give us a shout, we'll play your music and we'll get you on. Well, in about 10 minutes' time, we'll be hearing from the first North East band who've got in touch. So we'll be doing that in about 10 minutes. But we will be back with more football chat after this.
Catherine was turned down by 2 other solicitors before Ather & Co took on her case.
My husband was at work, tripped over, fractured his knee. He developed pulmonary embolism and died. That left me a widow with 3 young daughters. Devastating. Charles Ather took my husband's work to court, got them to admit liability. They were very diligent, very caring.
Choose the one you know, Ather & Co.
So glad that I went to Athers.
Clark.
My debut 1990 September, Bristol City away, to get that opportunity what thousands of Geordies only dream of.
Hignett.
Playing against Chelsea and to score the first goal there is something that still lives with me now, and it's what most people will talk to me about.
Williams.
My first goal for Sunderland away at Leicester. It was a left full volley. I didn't realise my left foot was for kicking a ball with as well. I thought it was just for standing up.
Across the North East, it's the 3 legends.
Fridays at 6 on the Cat, the Reds and the Toon.
From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Reds, the Toon and the Cat.
Oh, we're rocking it. We're rocking it this morning across the North East. A bit of Def Leppard there, and let's get rocked. It is the North East Footy Breakfast with Dave, me. I'm the interloper. We've got, of course, Rye in Australia. G'day, mate. We've got Steve, who's in Gateshead. Why, man? And we have Mike. Actually, Michael, I don't even know where you are. Where are you in the North East? Are you Sunderland based? Where are you?
Not quite Sunderland based. I'm in South Tyneside, funnily enough.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm in Bolton Colliery, so yeah.
Know it well.
If anyone's interested in where I live.
Know it well. Well, I know it well because our transmitter site is just round the corner on top of a hill from you, so you should be getting the cat loud and proud there. Hopefully.
Fair enough.
On DAB radio.
Fair enough.
Yeah, good man. And actually, on Mike, where's Steve's gone quiet? Is Steve there? Hello, Steve.
I'm still
you're
here,
there,
chaps.
You're still there. Good man. We wouldn't want to, lose you.
Never.
I'd just like to ask the question. We were talking there, transfer windows and deadline days, which it is, and we're all excited. Michael, what happens if Mogga doesn't get who he wants? Where does it leave Mogga at the Stadium of Light?
That's a very good question. There's been reports apparently that he could walk. There's been reports that he's trying to be phased out. I think Rye touched upon them before the last break, but it's a funny one because we got Mowbray a year ago to replace Alex Neil, and I think the remit at that point was to stabilise in the Championship because obviously that was our first year back. But now, with how we did last year, I don't know whether we're trying to look to progress beyond that. But for me, not giving Mogga this season, I think would be very, very harsh, unless things really went south in the next couple of months. But at the same time, though, it's obvious we don't have that number 9 figure. So, yeah, to be fair, I suppose you can't rule anything out. I mean, I didn't think Alex Neil would go to Stoke, and look what happened there. So I would say with Mogga, I can't rule out the idea of him going. But if that's the case, then those Sunderland fans, I think that Steve was talking to, saying they don't match Mowbray's ambitions to progress. And I do wonder with our owner, with our majority shareholder, Carl Louis-Dreyfus, I think questions would have to be asked because there's only so long Sunderland should want to be in this league without trying to progress. And to do that, we need a forward. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the recruitment team and what we've done. But I'll tell you what, big questions rightly should be asked if we don't get what we need in the next couple of days.
It's an interesting one because I think Mogga's the ideal manager. And I would do being a Borough lad, but I think Mogga's the ideal manager for what you need right now. I mean, you're bringing in younger talent to develop. He's a master at that. You're in the Championship at the moment. He's a master of that league. He ticks every box in my eyes, for what you need. But for some reason, close or the end of last season into close season, talks of having discussions with other managers to replace him, all that kind of stuff. It just smacks of rank bad management.
Yeah, that's probably festered in the background, and I think that the club have had opportunities to sort of put those rumours to bed and haven't done it, which again comes back to the communication thing. So, yeah, like I said, off the pitch, there's a lot to be desired at Sunderland, put it that way. But yeah, with Mogga, I completely agree with you. I think we should be keeping hold of him.
Yeah. I don't know about you fellas. Rye, you'll have seen Mogga from afar. Steve, you've been in across North East football for a long time. Is he the right man for Sunderland?
I think so, definitely. For me, Mogga's like, he, as you said. I mean, we saw the fallout from Alex Neil leaving early last season, and we thought, well, that's it for Sunderland. And then, lo and behold, do we see them in the playoffs? I mean, that's Mogga's work there. He's come into a club that was, in free fallout after thinking that Alex Neil was the manager that was going to take him back to the Prem. He walks out on them, and they're left with, who can they get? And in comes Mogga, and I think he's done a brilliant job. And as you said, they've got so many young stars there. They've got this attitude of youth first, and creating and raising the next bright stars of football. For that, you need some leadership around there, and you need an old head that's going to bring the young boys in line. If you've got a young boys club, then it can get quite out of hand really quickly without some leadership around there. And I think Danny Barth, and obviously like keeping people like that around the club is obviously important. But for me, I question as well, if they do get rid of Mogga, who's out there? I mean, who do you go and get that comes into that club and steers the ship correctly? Because for me, there's not names bouncing out at me right now. And I feel the same with Michael Carrick. And even if Eddie Howe was to disappear for some reason at Newcastle, I mean, I don't think there's a good manager just sitting out there waiting to be picked, other than Steve Bruce, who keeps putting his name in the hat, because Steve Bruce is in there. Do you know what I mean? So, other than that, there's not much left. So, yeah, for me, Mogga's the choice at the moment, and there's not much else they can do other than hopefully get a striker in today.
I will throw it out there. If Mogga does go, then I think we will probably look to get someone in from abroad that we've never heard of, in the hope that it does the next Brentford sort of thing. Don't be shocked to see if that's what we end up doing with, because a lot of it is down to finance. And if we get someone from abroad, cheaper wages, not going to command as much. So I don't know. For me, it shouldn't be in question, this. But yeah, I think if Mogga does go, I wouldn't be shocked if we got someone from abroad we haven't known of.
You got to be careful.
I genuinely think that Tony Mowbray is a good fit for Sunderland, but I don't think the owners think he's a good fit, and I think he will end up leaving, which is sad, because he's got a good track record at that level, and just sometimes managers and owners just don't get on. But it is going to be interesting. But yes, you can, like Steve Bruce, we've talked about it, back on TV again yesterday, talking about Newcastle United, putting himself in the picture for a manager's job. He said he's retired, but he's constantly pushing and pushing. He'd love the opportunity to go back to Sunderland. I know for a fact he would.
No, he won't go back to Sunderland, because I've got it sussed. We've mapped out the EFL Cup, the Carrier Bag Cup, and how it's going to be a Man City Borough final. I mean, that's obvious. And I've now mapped out Steve Bruce. Eddie Howe's going to get the England job when Gareth steps down, and you're going to get Steve Bruce back at St James's Park.
Can I just remind you? Eddie Howe's win rate at Newcastle is 49%. Points per game, 1.74 points. Steve Bruce, 27% win rate, 1.1 point. He's not coming anywhere near our football club, mate.
I had to turn the fader down on the desk. He's that emotional.
Keep selling yourself.
Yeah,
he's that. Might be a job for you down here in Australia, Steve. I'll have a look for you, mate.
I mean, Steve. To be fair to you, you've had a turn of Steve Bruce. We have. I think it's about time these two.
Oh no!
Good idea, Michael. Good idea.
No.
Bruce in now. You can have Alex Bruce's number 2.
Wants to do the Northeast treble, he does. I tell you, Steve Bruce, he would do it in a heartbeat.
I mean, he goes through different clubs in the same region. He's managed both Newcastle and Sunderland. He's managed both Sheffield clubs, I think. So why not?
Has anybody ever managed all 3 Northeast clubs? I mean,
Mogga's done both Middlesbrough and Sunderland now, obviously, and we've got Steve Bruce doing Newcastle and Sunderland as well. So there's a couple that have gone close, but I don't think there's been one that's done all 3. But yeah, who knows?
Has there been anyone that's done Newcastle and Middlesbrough?
Newcastle, Middlesbrough. No, there's a good
Jack Shaw.
Anyone that's managed both
Big Jack?
Them?
Yeah, Big Jack.
Big Jack.
Oh, Big Jack. Yeah.
Big Jack there.
Yeah,
great shout.
That's one. Yep.
Yeah, great shout. Yep. And of course, you might not have heard yesterday, Michael, Sir Bobby Robson shook hands on a deal to manage Sunderland and then turned his back on that deal to go to Newcastle. So you almost had Bobby Robson as well.
Yeah.
Incredible,
we can't have it all nice, can we?
Yeah, well, there you go. Right, I tell you what.
That player that flew into Leeds and said, no thanks. You hear about that? Did you hear about that? Leeds United. So Leeds United had a footballer come in, reported transfer, $5 million on the line. He flew into Leeds, had a look around and said, yep, no thanks, got back on the plane and off he went.
Well, there you go. It's just what they deserve. Just like getting American managers. That's what I say. Look what good that did for them. Right, fellas, we're just going to put a pause on the footy chat. We're going to talk local music because Steve is responsible for this. He threw out a challenge yesterday and basically said, we need local bands to get in touch. We want to start plugging local music. So it's all your fault, Wraith. It's all your fault,
That's good. That's good.
We've got the first one who stepped forward. We're going to do that next.
We all support the NHS, but accidents do happen. Maybe failure to diagnose, misdiagnosis, or unusual delay. If that negligence leads to any loss or exacerbation of your condition or a new condition, then you're entitled to compensation. Talk to Ather & Co. We're not afraid to take on powerful organisations such as the NHS and their legal team.
Choose the one you know, Ather & Co.
Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Windows, conservatories, and so much more. With high security, great quality, the company you've been searching for. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows. Whoa, Celestial, Celestial Windows.
Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
The Cup, the Tune and the Red.
It is Dave, it is Rye, it is Steve. Michael's here as well. But we're also welcoming Ben to the programme this morning. So, Steve Wraith, this was your challenge. Let's get local music acts, let's get local bands to get on, have a chat with us, and we'll plug the music. So, I'm pleased to say Ben joins us from Gone Tomorrow. Morning, Ben.
Morning.
Yeah,
hello everyone.
You are there. That's good stuff.
Hi, Ben.
So,
Hi,
so give us the feel of where you're from. Where are all the lads from? Tyneside, Wayside, Teesside? Give us the background.
So we're all from Teesside. We're Teesside via Manchester at the moment. So most of our band are from Eaglescliffe and Yarm, and I'm from near Teesside Airport. And then a couple of them are studying in Manchester, but we're all from Teesside originally.
Okay, cool. Should we hear some music and then come back and have a chat about it? I think that's a good idea, isn't it?
That sounds good, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what I've got here, I've got by Gone Tomorrow, a track called Barcelona, and it fits nicely. We've been playing a bit of Def Leppard. We've been doing a bit of that, and I think it fits nicely. Here we go.
Thank you.
You're quite like Barcelona. box to Barcelona.
If it's going to bring us a player in from on the transfer deadline day, we'll get back to Barcelona. Absolutely. So Ben, from Gone Tomorrow, I think are you the lead singer, mate? Is that what you do with the band?
Yeah, that's me. That's the one.
Cracking stuff. Well, look, it's Steve Wraith's idea. Great idea. Let's get some local acts on, local bands, local musos. See if we can help plug. Steve, I'll hand it over to you, mate.
Yeah. Ben, great song, by the way. Love it. And on Champions League draw day, that's great for me to hear that. I'd love to get back to Barcelona, to be honest. But, I mean, listening to that, it's got a very indie feel, very guitar feel. I used to manage a band up here for many years called the Long Sands, and it's got a feel of that, you know. I really enjoyed it. Who were your influences, Ben?
I'd say everybody I was introduced to by my dad growing up in terms of Britpop bands, like you know, the Britpop bands, and then Arctic Monkeys and Kings of Leon, and because I'm 19, so I really grew up in like the indie revolution, early 2000s stuff, and then just that's kind of mixed with a lot of stuff I got into as I've got older from different genres, and I've just kind of tried to drag as much of it together as possible to come up with something a little bit different but also familiar, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, did you write that song?
Yes, I write the songs in the band. So yeah.
What's that song? What's that song about then?
That song, I was messing around a lot at the time. I wrote that song about 1.5 years ago, and I was messing around a lot at the time, comparing people to places and cities and stuff, and just trying to mess around with some metaphors and something a little bit interesting. And then I came up with the idea of comparing this person to Barcelona, because I'd been there on holiday, and then just kind of messing around that theme about what would a person be if they were a city, and then that kind of turned into a little this little song, which is not really a love, it's kind of a little naive, youthful song, you know.
Yeah. I mean, from your perspective as well, you know, obviously you're at that age, you know, everyone's busy, everyone's got their own lives, so it's got to be difficult to get together and rehearse. Do you manage to find time to do that? How often do you rehearse?
Yeah, we do quite well for that, and that's two of our band being in Manchester and studying at uni at the moment, but they travel back a lot, and we're all very committed. So we usually get. We spend a lot of time talking about music as well, which helps. I feel like we've played together since we were really young, so it comes together really fast these days, because we've been playing together since we were 14 or 15, so we know each other really well, and then we can kind of just practice a few times before gigs, and that usually stands us in good stead, as long as we're like speaking about music plenty and we know where everybody's at.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about gigs. I mean, have you done many? How have you found it getting out and playing live?
Yeah, we've done really well, and every time we get a gig in a new place, we seem to get 2 or 3, which I've heard is a good sign. And that's kind of how we're running at the minute, like trying to get a gig in a new city and then getting offered a couple more. So we played Manchester for the first time on Friday night. And then we've played bits and bobs in Newcastle at the Clooney and at the Head of Steam. And then we've played in Leeds at a place called the Oporto. And we're looking at some Sheffield gigs. And we're starting to branch out. And then we've done a lot of Teesside stuff as well, with like Stockton Calling and, you know, the Georgian Theatre. We're very fortunate to have so many of the best venues we've played been like right near home as well, you know.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, and from your perspective, you know, you write the songs. You know, are you doing a little bit of your own stuff and doing some cover versions, or are you purely doing your own stuff now?
Yeah, we're trying and cater that to whoever we're playing to. I think when we started, we were very kind of, oh no, we're just going to do our own stuff. And then it was my dad who was like, come on, son, just play the Strokes and everyone will go mental. And I think he wore me down. And I was like, okay, go on then, I'll try it. And then I did, and then everyone did go crazy. So now I think we're finding a bit more of a balance than when we started and being adamant that we're just going to do our stuff. So now we'll do a cover or two in like a half an hour or 45 minutes.
What's the aim then? What's the aim? Where do you want to be in a few years' time?
I think, it's really, really cliche to say, but I feel like you have no option but to take it one gig at a time. I think if we look too far ahead, I think we'd lose track of the fun things that we're doing right now. Like, we've just come back from recording in Newcastle again. We're thinking
we'll call it a day after this, mate.
We're pressing our first vinyl record and stuff over the winter. So I think just really making the most of all the little things that we're doing, and then hopefully ending up as big and as successful as possible in the long run. But in the meantime, all the little things, just try and really, really make the most of those, because we're getting some really fun opportunities at the moment.
Brilliant. Where can people find you? Have social medias, give your Facebook, your Twitters and stuff a shout out now.
Absolutely. They can find us on Instagram at Gone Tomorrow Band, and then they can find us on Spotify and Apple Music and all streaming platforms as Gone Tomorrow.
Well, best of luck. Thanks for coming on, and I'll hand back over to Dave. Cheers, Dave.
Ben, thank you, mate. Wish you every success. Sorry?
Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome, mate. Well done. Cracking stuff. So the band is Gone Tomorrow. That's Ben, the lead singer and songwriter. It would be great to be talented, Steve. I'm not asking that as a question in your direction, because, all I can do is press buttons and gob off. But, to be able to write music, to be able to perform, magnificent.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Listen, I mean, that's what it's all about, and with us having the opportunity to do the breakfast show, football and music goes hand in hand, and we're following in the footsteps of a wonderful show like Soccer AM, which ran for years using a successful kind of formula. And I just think giving local northeast bands an opportunity, whether they're from Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Sunderland, or further afield, get on, send your music in to Dave, and we'll push it out on the breakfast show. Yeah, we'll give plugs. I mean, it's dead easy to get in touch with us. Obviously, if you want to get in touch with the show directly, WhatsApp into the studio 0330 043 2002. But if you want to get in touch with any of the three stations to get in touch with the tune, the email addresses are all very similar. hello@thetuneuk.com. If you want to get in touch with the cat, hello@thecatuk.com. And if it's the Red on Teesside you want to get in touch with, hello@thereduk.com. I'm having a meeting actually with the Tees Music Alliance next week, Steve. So, and we're going to be doing something on Tyneside and Wearside as well. So we're hoping to bring a lot of local music to the station, which is great. Great stuff. That sort of music would work down under, wouldn't it, right?
Yeah, it certainly would. Yeah, they definitely had like an Arctic Monkeys sort of vibe to them. Actually, I really enjoyed it. So. No, it's good to hear some local bands and obviously some local Teesside lads as well. So, yeah, I love hearing local music. And, look, if we're just, one of the first stations that puts them on the air, and you start hearing them big time, in a few months, then good on them, because that's, it's everyone's, got to start somewhere. And I think that, their music in that was quite vibey then. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've learnt my lesson. With what happened with Danny. So right now we're putting Ben on, and we'll keep reminding Ben when he becomes super famous. We want free tickets to gigs. That's what we want. We want the band to pay for a ride to fly over and see them perform at the NEC in Birmingham. That's what we need.
Via the Riverside, please. That would be great.
Okay. Via the Riverside. Michael, are you into local music, or is football your true passion?
Pretty much the latter. I think music is one where obviously music's is a massive industry and a lot of people love it, but for me, football's my sort of main thing.
Brilliant.
Amen.
So we've got about 6 or 7 minutes, fellas. Where we're going to finish on today?
Transfer deadline today. We got midnight. So I just wanted to wrap up, I guess, by asking the boys, and we'll go around the grounds. I want to hear their best deadline day signing. Has to be signed on the deadline day from the midnight to midnight. I want to hear their best deadline day signing. And let's hear maybe one or two of their worst deadline day signings. I'll give you a bit of time, Michael. We'll start with Steve. I want to hear Newcastle United's best deadline day signing and their worst.
Best deadline day, I mean, obviously, because you're narrowing it down to deadline day. In recent times, has to be Nobby Solano coming back to Newcastle, because that was on the day that Michael Owen was unveiled at St James's Park, and he is up there with one of the worst signings for me in recent times. But Nobby Solano came back, for his second spell at the club, and that was just a wonderful surprise, because obviously he'd left. Ruud Hullet and him didn't say eye to eye. He ended up forced out the club. He ended up going to Villa, playing really well at Villa, but then came back, and it was great to see. He came back to the club, trumpet and all, but that was one of the best transfer deadline moments in recent years for me. If you want the worst one,
yes,
I've got to say, I've got to say, right, Andy Carroll leaving Newcastle was very disappointing for us, because he was a Geordie lad. He was banging goals in, and on transfer deadline day, to suddenly hear that Andy Carroll was leaving and was becoming a £35 million man, we were all in tears on Tyneside. So, what is the one thing you don't want to do to placate your fans when you lose your £35 million top scorer? It is, of course, bringing in Shefty Kuchi, who when Newcastle said they were going big and bringing in a replacement, I didn't realise it was a bigger player than Andy Carroll in size. I've got to be honest, I'm doing him a disservice. He didn't do too badly, but that was probably in recent times the worst. It wasn't on transfer deadline day, but there is another one who came in for Newcastle United, and it was Doumbia. And exactly, you'll be saying, who on earth is Doumbia? Well, Seydou Doumbia came in to Newcastle on the 1st of February, and that was at the end of a transfer deadline day, and it was, again, just, he came in on loan. I don't really think he ever played a game for Newcastle. He just, like, he came in on loan, and we were all scratching our heads going, who on earth is this? Who on earth is this player? Who on earth is this man? I'm doing him a disservice. I think he played 3 games. But yeah, we've had some stinkers, lads, but Shefty Kuchi is probably the worst one, just because of who he replaced.
Just the mention of Andy Carroll reminds me, and this is a story probably for tomorrow, of when Duncan Ferguson came at me and wanted to rip my head off. Now, I'll leave you on tenterhooks in. I'll leave you in suspenders for that one, and we'll talk about that one tomorrow. But Michael, deadline day, Sunderland, stories?
Well, for the sake of time, I don't think there's too many to get into. I think probably the season that Roy Keane was here when we signed, I'm just looking it up, I think we signed 6 players on deadline day, which is just absolutely bonkers. But as far as the worst one goes, and I think it's a certain someone who's supposed to be on fire who has a song named after him. Where on transfer deadline day in the first season in League One, we signed Will Grigg, which on paper should have been a good signing and turned out to be one of the worst signings we've ever made in our history. And considering we've dropped from the Premier League to League One, that takes some very good doing, actually. So well done, Mr. Will Grigg. You get the accolade for that one. Honestly, he just couldn't hit a barn door to save his life. And if you want to look at how bad he was, go and look in the lockdown season 2020-2021. Sunderland lost at home to MK Dons, and look at the chance that Will Grigg had. He's basically at 2 yards out, and he doesn't even get a connection on the ball. That's the point where it's just like, yep, Will Grigg hasn't got a hope here.
Song.
Yeah.
So Wigan Athletic should be.
Yeah, he's at Chesterfield now. I saw him yesterday at Chesterfield. He lined up against Hartlepool, and I was like, oh my God, that's Will Grigg.
Yeah, in which case, that alone says the fall from Gracie's side. So Wigan Athletic, you're welcome for us paying £4 million and keeping you in business, lads.
Yeah. And then there's Borough. Well...
All right. Well, I think our worst one, I've got a couple. We've got a couple, don't we, Dave? But I reckon the worst one for me is going to have to be... I'm going to go Mirdo. I'm going to go Mirdo from obviously coming in. It's just the way he left the club. And obviously he came in like he was the best striker in the world. He scored a couple of goals and then he hated the club and absolutely smashed us on the way out. So it has to be, for me, Mirdo. But I tell you what, it's a close run from Afonso Alves as well. The Brazilian that we had a parade for. We got the Macarinas out, the Brazilian dancers on the Riverside pitch for the arrival of Afonso Alves, the striker that was going to change the world. for Middlesbrough. And I think he scored 4 goals, was it?
This was the guy who scored 726 goals in the Dutch Eredivisie that season, didn't he? And he came to the Borough for, was it 15 million or something?
15 mil.
And I remember Gareth Southgate saying, I didn't even know I had 15 million to spend.
Incredible.
And, yeah.
I love the Brazilian dances on the pitch when he's walking through, and oh my goodness. So, yeah, there's been a couple for Borough, but I think Mido, just purely the way he went about it when he was at our club, he just thought he was the God's grace to the football pitch and to the Middlesbrough fans. And if it wasn't going Mido's way, then I tell you what, you're in for a bad day, because he was going to let you know about it. So, yeah, a couple there for us. But, look, I'm hoping for a busy transfer deadline day, and I hope everyone around the country in your club gets in who you want, and it'll be a very jam-packed up until midnight, because it looks like there's a few clubs still willing to spend. So for the Northeast Footy fans, it looks like from Steve that Newcastle have shut the door. Middlesbrough hoping to get a couple in with losing Martin Piero, and will Sunderland get their striker? Let's catch up tomorrow. I can't wait. It's going to be a late night for all of us as we wait on tender hooks, especially the Middlesbrough and Sunderland fans, because I tell you what, we both could use with 1 or 2.
Hang on, mate. What do you mean it's going to be a late night for all of us? It's 8 o'clock in the morning, your time.
Actually, yeah. I mean, look, okay, all right. I'm going to wake up, okay? I'm going to wake up to the news, all right? That Middlesbrough have gone and signed, I don't know, probably Haaland on loan, by the way we're going at the moment. I think, Haaland's up for a cup run, so I think we'll get Haaland on loan. We'll probably take Tonali on loan from Newcastle, because I just don't think he's going to get a game at United. And look, we'll get Ross Stewart as well, and then we're done. I think that's a good transfer on the deadline day.
I mean, to be fair, Haaland can't play against City at Wembley, can he?
No, exactly.
I think Rye's being on something. Fellas, we're out of time. Thank you very much. We'll catch up tomorrow, and hopefully it's excitement for all of us, including Steve, who's just sat back and said, I'm sorry, we're not going to do any business.
We're not doing any business. I just want to say thanks to Michael for coming on. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you, Michael.
No, thank you for having me on, lad.
Yeah, brilliant
thanks
stuff.
to Ben as well. Good luck with the band.
Yeah, indeed. Fellas, same time, same place tomorrow. See you then.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Michael.
Take care, lads.